I do want to say that Daniel Deng, the lawyer, also told me, which we didn't have time to show you that clip, but that these women, of course, the birth tourism mothers, don't speak English. The tourism brokers trick them into signing Medicaid, Medi-Cal, they call it out in California, forms. They're told they'll have the best private doctors, and in fact, their deliveries are handled by state doctors, Medicaid doctors, and paid for by the citizens of California. It is supposed to be a relatively small number of people. I want to point that out. The U.S. government reports something like 7,500 the last time that well, remember, this story aired last year, and the reporting I did for it was mainly from late 2012, early 2013. But the last time I checked, the latest figures, which probably were from 2010, showed about 7,500 births to foreign mothers in the United States. I also interviewed one of the members of the LA County Commission, and he said, there's no way that number's accurate. I can tell you about 10,000 instances of this in Los Angeles County alone, which is one of the places where it's concentrated, but it's happening all over the country. But to get back to who I want to thank Mark. I want to thank Steve Camarota, whom we've interviewed so many times, who's such an expert on all the numbers, who really helps us in that way. I want to thank Roy Beck and his wonderful Numbers USA, and Ann Manetis, who's here. We work with them on many projects, and that they run and it's shown by the growth of their website and email list. They run a very necessary organization with now more than 2 million, I believe, members. Shows you just how much of an issue that's half the size of the NRA, of course, not as well known as the NRA. But about myself, I want to tell you a little bit about how I came to immigration as an important issue to be covered in all its aspects, good and bad. I am the very proud daughter of a Russian-Cuban immigrant. My grandfather and his two brothers left Russia, Poland, what's now Lithuania, but went back and forth between Russia and Poland during all the wars they had, and could not get into the United States, could not get their visas, so they went to Cuba, waited 10 years till their numbers came up. In the process, became Cuban citizens, and then went back and forth between the U.S. and Cuba after that. And my grandfather started 2 small businesses in Havana, or outside Havana, and one in Brooklyn, and went back and forth until the end of his life, which was right after Castro took over. Anyway, immigrants are fabulous. Immigrants make the best Americans. They work the hardest for the least amount of money. They contribute so much to this country. But in the journalistic community, if you dare raise any negative impact of mass immigration that we have now, both legal and illegal, you are shunted aside as some kind of strange person who has a very strange approach to reporting. And it's very sad because I came up in the 70s as a teenager, went to one of the first Earth Day events in New York City in 1970, and population, not immigration at that point, I might add, because it predated the latest great wave of immigration, but population in the United States was an issue that was front and center. It is never mentioned anymore. Or if you mention, you can't use the term overpopulation. That gets you shouted out by both conservatives and liberals. Liberals don't want to hear it because they support open border immigration, pretty much. And conservatives don't like it because they want cheap labor. And so I am nonpartisan, not because of that issue, because of a whole host of issues, but I like to say I dislike each party equally for different reasons. But I truly am not, I certainly came of age as a progressive, but I am no longer a progressive because I don't believe the progressives really support the environment. And to me, that's the most important issue. If we don't deal with climate change and human impact on the planet, there's not going to be a planet in 50 years, is my personal belief. And you say that in journalistic or political circles, and people look at you cross-eyed. And we get objections from viewers sometimes. We also get great emails saying, thank you for doing this. I hear this nowhere else on TV. But we also get people who say, call me bad names and say that begins with R, and call us out for just reporting what are the facts. And I think it's a really sad time because I'm not sorry. I spend a fair amount of time in the company of climate change scientists. I am convinced that if perhaps it may not be too late. It probably is, but perhaps if we were to turn around everything right now and use and restrict the bad things that we're doing to the environment, carbon emissions, et cetera, and use new science to try to turn around global warming, maybe it's not too late. I kind of think it is. But since we are nowhere near where we need to be to deal with this issue, we really should be dealing with issues that contribute to it that we can deal with. And one of those is population growth in all its forms, not births to native people in each country. And the United States, the fertility rate is and has been for a very long time of native-born Americans, 2.1. which is replacement level. But we add 1 million a year in terms of legal immigrants, and the children that they have. And the first generation of women tends to have many more than 2 children because they come from families of 6 and 8, as did my grandmother, also from Lithuania, was one of 11 children. She's the only one who made it over to the United States before Hitler went through her town and killed all of her family. But she would have had, I would have had lots of cousins and all that sort of thing if it hadn't been for that event. And it's true of all immigrants, because when women are uneducated in the countries that they come from, children are their social security, they are their livelihood, and that women don't have anything else to do where they can earn a living. They come here, they get educated, they get fabulous educations, or they have to until recently, have been able to. And then they have 1 or 2 kids. I mean, look at Hillary Clinton, for example. But we're not dealing with the fact that we are the major contributors to greenhouse gases. And what we do, and this is our cultural disadvantage, but when we do take immigrants from developing nations who have very small carbon footprints, we turn them into the rest of us who have huge carbon footprints and turn them into greater contributors to global warming. And we need to do something somewhere. We're not doing anything on any of the fronts. Immigration is just one of the fronts where we need to start controlling things. But again, is anybody going to listen? Does anybody care? No. Al Gore, much to his credit, tried in his presidential bid, in his, I might say, successful presidential bid that he never claimed the gain from, to bring overcrowding, traffic, smog, overcrowding of schools, all those issues that are a result of overpopulation that affect people where they live and people can relate to. He tried to raise that as an issue in his campaign, and it did not work, so he dropped it. But Americans just don't want to hear it for whatever reason. In any event, for that reason and many others, I thank you so much, Mark, for giving this award, for encouraging those of us who are out in the trenches to keep doing it, because we need all the support we can get.
People have places to go, I know, but I actually had one question for you, Bonnie, that occurred to me. I'd thought of it before, but I didn't bring it up. To the Contrary is on PBS, and it's covered by a lot of PBS stations, syndicated, so the stations can pick it up if they want. How do you stay on PBS? I mean, how do you get away with that?
Well, we do, we're carried in 91% of the country. And I think, as you saw, although we raise these issues, we're very, very fair about it. We don't present one side, we present both sides. And we also are, quite frankly, the most diverse show on public television, and have been. I know that now, just in the last year or so, Gwen Ifill and Judy Woodruff were named as co-anchors of the NewsHour, but we have been all women and at least 2 women of color on the panel. Usually we're a panel discussion show, but just in the last couple of years we've started doing longer takeouts, like you saw, Shot in the Field, on issues that are of great interest to our audience. And immigration is one of them, but we also, we just aired one this past weekend, a piece I shot in Rio on a group called Pro Mundo, which goes into the slums of the favelas in Rio de Janeiro, takes men at risk for domestic violence and puts them through a training therapy program, and makes them realize that being a man does not mean beating up your wife and kids, but taking care of them, providing for them, becoming involved with the children, even when the woman is still pregnant, going on prenatal visits. And so it's one of many issues that we cover. I mean, we don't do immigration every week or anything like that.
I understand.
So, but you know, in the past there have been complaints and issues raised that made life difficult that I think were very unfair.
Right. Good. Well, thank you, Bonnie, and we'll get you the clock when UPS gets it to us.
And I did want to say I want to donate the
I took care of it. Yes.
to Progressives for Immigration Reform. I think that's a very, very important group, and that's what I'm doing.
Thank you. And Jeremy, thanks for your comments. We're going to have a transcript and a video up probably next week. Thank you all for coming. I'm not sure about Jeremy and Bonnie, but I'm happy to be accosted afterwards if you want to talk later. But I want to respect people's time. People have to get back to the office. So thank you very much, and we hope to see you at next year's Katz Award luncheon. Thank you.